Hey everybody, welcome back to Everything Ham Radio. My name is Curtis. My call sign is Kilo 5 Charlie Lima Mike, and today we're going to be talking about the results for the State of the Hobby Survey in 2019. So stick around. Okay, so let's get on to the State of the Hobby 2019 survey results. Now, there was I'm going to say a very good turnout, definitely higher than last year. There was 3,786 unique responses this year to the survey. Now, of those 337, almost 3,800, 3,235 of those were participants that didn't take the survey last year. Only 551 of them actually took the survey last year, which is actually really surprising. Last year on the results as well, there was a predominant one that didn't take it the year before. And I find that kind of odd. I don't know if they didn't just like the survey when they took it the first time or didn't find out about it or what. But I find it really interesting that there's a very low number that had taken it years in the year before. Okay, so the response rate was very good. There was a large peak the first part of March, and the survey was open through the entire month of March. There was a very large peak during the first week or so of March, and then again about the 20th or so. And I'll put that graph up here on the screen as well so you can actually see what I'm seeing. Again, there was a major age inflection maybe. I don't know the word I'm looking for. But anyways, a predominantly large percentage of the respondents was over the age of 55. Now, there was 65.63% of the respondents were over 55. So that's, if there was 3,800, that's like, 1,700 respondents were over the age of 55. And it drastically, if you look here on the screen, you can actually see those that are 45 to 54 is the third highest. And there's a dramatic drop there between the 45 to 54 and the 55 to 64 age bracket. And then it goes down from there. And there was 112 people that were under the age of 25 that responded to this survey. So again, just like last year, it seems like, and the year before that as well, it seems like there is a predominant elderly or older age range in this hobby. And I don't know if people just aren't finding it, just aren't seeing it, just don't participate the way that the Elmers of the hobby do, and just didn't find out about the survey, didn't want to take the survey or whatever. But I find it disturbing rather that the majority of the people that responded to this are over the age of 55. And if this gives any kind of picture of what the hobby as a whole is, that's really very disturbing for me. Okay, so next up, we're going to be looking at license classes here, and I'll put this up on the screen. 53% of those that responded were amateur extra class licensees here in the U.S. The second largest group was 24% for general, 7% for technician, 4% for advanced. So let's see, 55 or 53, 75, like 80 some odd percent of those were here based in the U.S. And predominantly extra. And one of the things that really kind of interested me, I guess you could say, was that even though there was such a high number of extras that answered this, there was a question that was asked on CW statistics. Those that could receive and how much they could copy, or how much they can copy and how fast they can send. And 44% of those that answered this question couldn't copy CW, and 44% of them couldn't send it either. The biggest statistic, or the biggest area of the CW area, was up to 20 words a minute, which is very interesting. So that tells me that a lot of the people that that do CW can copy it quite fast. And then it goes down from there to 10 words a minute, which is, as you can see here on the graph itself, it predominantly is up to 20, then it goes down to 10, and then down to 5, and then a very small portion of them could do up to 60 or over 60. Okay, so next up, we're going to be talking about, or I want to touch on, something that we've been talking about here the past couple weeks or so on this channel, and that's testing. Actually, it was back in March, I believe, when we did a bunch of it on testing, and I did a bunch of reviews and stuff like that about getting your amateur radio license. One of the questions that was asked in the survey was, how many weeks have you been studying for your license? And the largest portion of it was 2 weeks. The next highest was 1 week, and then followed by 9+ weeks. Those were tied for second place. The 9+ weeks is rather disturbing for me. If it's taking you more than 9 weeks, then you're hurting yourself if you're trying to upgrade or whatever. You need to sit down. It shouldn't take any more than 4 weeks, really 2 weeks, really, if you really want to get your upgrade. The ways that people were studying for it really didn't surprise me in this day and age, because the largest portion of those were taking online practice tests, and then followed very closely behind by printed material and textbooks. Okay, so next up we're going to be talking about, the question was, which common areas of an amateur radio test are most worrisome for you? The number one answer for this was electrical components, circuits, and diagrams. Now, like I said in previous videos on studying, this area, especially for the technician class, has very little to do with the test. You might have, out of the 25 questions that are on the technician class, and even the general class, you might have 5 of those, maybe, that has any kind of circuits on them, or electrical components or anything like that. So this really shouldn't worry you, because you can miss, I want to say 9 questions on both the technician and the general class licenses and still pass. So that really shouldn't bother you. Were you encouraged to participate in the hobby from an Elmer or a mentor? 71% of them said no, 29% said yes. So of the 29% of those that actually had somebody to help them, they more than likely did better in the hobby, because they had an Elmer there that could help push them, that could show them the correct way to do things, that could answer questions for them, and they probably had an easier time both taking the test, getting their license, and also putting that to use after the fact. Of the 71% that said no, for whatever reason, maybe they didn't know anybody in the hobby. Maybe it was just something that they wanted to do. They're having to learn it all by themselves, and might have a hard time, might not use the hobby to its full advantage, or to its full potential, rather. Okay, so overall, the average year licensed is just shy of 31%. The average years active is just over 20%. So, if other family members are amateur radio operators as well, that number goes up. Overall licensed is almost 32 and a half years, and active is just shy of 26 years. So again, if you have somebody to talk to other than a friend or something like that, if you have a family member or something, you tend to be a ham and be active for longer than if you don't. If your spouse is willingly participates in the hobby, the average license goes down a little bit. It's only just shy of 28 years, and active is almost 25 years. And then lastly, if you belong to a club, your average year's license is 30, and active is 18, almost 19%. So next up, question was, do you belong to at least one local club? 64% said yes, 35% said no. As far as the areas of the hobby that you enjoy the most, again, DXing was the number one on the list this year, followed closely by digital modes. Third up was antenna design, followed by local rag chewing. Next up is HF rag chewing, net participation, and then all the way down at the very bottom was Earth, Moon, Earth, which I totally understand why that's so far, because it is rather difficult to do. Following along these same lines, which band do you frequently operate on? This year, again, 40 meters, it topped the list. But rather than last year, I believe it was 40, 20, and then 2 meters. This year, we kind of did a flip-flop. This year, number 1 is 40, number 2 is 2 meters, and number 3 is 20 meters. As far as the digital modes we talked about here just a second ago, FT8 is your number 1 by a pretty large margin, followed by PSK31, RTTY, and ARPS, and then Whisper rounds out the top 5. The primary method of logging, again, for the third year in a row, number 1 is a paper log. In years past, and the last episode or the last video that I did on this about a month ago, as with the 2008 results, it also had paper log as number 1. And every year that they've done this, all 3 years of this survey has gone out, paper log has been the number 1, which again kind of surprises me. But this year, number 2 is QRZ, as far as how you log your contacts and stuff. And then followed closely by N3 FJP, Ham Radio Deluxe, so on and so forth. And then next up along these same lines is, how do you QSL your contacts? First off is direct or postal, followed closely by Logbook of the World, EQSL. QRZ is very, very low. It's the very last one on the list as far as how that people will QSL their things. So the next area is issues that are facing the hobby. Now, the most foreseen issue in the hobby right now is the operator base aging out. That is the highest number people answering this question believe to be a problem. And it actually has both the highest number of people that answer this question as this, and also the highest perceived as importance, is people aging out. And like I said earlier, it seems like people in this hobby are getting older, and the next generation are just not becoming hams. And we as hams, we need to fix that, or this hobby is going to die. The FCC is going to start taking frequencies away from us, and we're going to be up creek without paddle. The next highest one, as far as issue, is HOAs. Now, the highest perceived issue with this is not I mean, it's like number 6 or something like that. But people see this as a problem. And I find that really interesting because the next, or one of the other questions that are asked are, have you been impacted by an HOA regarding this question? And overwhelmingly, people have said that they strongly disagree, that they have been affected by an HOA. So people see it as the number 2 issue with the hobby, but predominantly nobody has been affected by it. It's within the past 12 months, have you encouraged someone to attain a license? 25% of those that answered said no, 75% said yes. Of those 75% that said yes, the question was asked, did they obtain their license? 32% of them said they obtained it, 30% did not obtain it, and 38% of them did not know whether they did or not. Now, this tells me that some of them that encourage people didn't follow through with them, didn't be a good Elmer to them to help them through the process of getting their license and becoming a good ham. So we need to work on that as a hobby. Another thing that I found really funny, a section of this was asked on how many handheld transceivers you have and how much you plan to spend or how much you have spent this year. When asked how many HTs do you own, the average HT per person is 3.5. I have one. I can see maybe having 2. You know, if you have a 2 meter 441 and you want like a 221, I can see that. But 3.5. And the total HTs owned by everybody that responded was 12,742 handhelds. That's a lot of radios for 3,800 people that responded. The next question was, within the last 12 months, how much would you estimate you've spent on amateur radio? The average reported spending is $1,656.23. Within the next 12 months, how much do you intend to spend on amateur radio? The average spending is $3,800 or $3,805.05. Of the respondents that answer this question, there is $6,012,110 worth of revenue that was spent within the past 12 years, and with the potential over the next 12 months of $13,507,921 being spent in the amateur radio. So there's a bunch of potential out there for people that are looking to sell radios, that's for sure. Anyways, y'all, that pretty much wraps it up. I really enjoy this state of hobby thing here. I definitely plan on doing it again next year and every year after that. So make sure you check it out next year when it comes around and participate in the study. If nothing else, it's just really interesting data. And the gentleman that does it, he does it of his own accord. I think he said that he did something like 38 hours or something like that, tabulating all the data and getting it all into format where people can read it. And it's all done on his own time with his own money. So I'm going to put a link to his website down in the description below. And check out that. Check out the previous surveys as well. Make sure you subscribe to his email list so you can get an email when it goes out next time. But anyways, that is it, y'all. Thank y'all very much for tuning in today. Until next time, y'all. See you later. 73.